Hello everyone, today I'll be sharing one of the most challenging races that I've ever been part of in Gran Turismo 7. The car that we were using was the infamous F3500A, which was loosely inspired by the 90s era F1 cars. The cars are absolute handful and they require a lot of finesse and technique to drive them effectively. On top of that, we were racing in changeable conditions at Le Mans, one of my favorite tracks. But in the rain with these cars created an absolutely nightmare combo. Overall, I think you're gonna love this race. So don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new around here. Let's get into it. Full send it. Full send. Full send. Come on, chat! Come on! No one's beating that. Awesome, guys. Thank you for the love and support. I'm going to be fully locked in now. I'm not going to risk reading the chat today. This is just too much of a card that requires all my attention, so... yeah. Let's do this, huh? Oh no, I can't see the track. That's a pin. Yeah. It's fine. It's fine. Fine. Long race. I can't see the track because there's freaking sparks everywhere, man. So as you could hear, I was incredibly frustrated at this part of the race. These cars at the best of times are incredibly tricky to drive, let alone at the early morning where it's very difficult to see, and then on top of that, the amount of sparks these cars generate is ridiculous. They completely blind you, and that's what happened to me when I was going out of Tete Rouge. I couldn't see the apex of the corner. I had to just turn in and do a little Hail Mary, and hopefully I didn't cut the corner, but unfortunately I did. And it was just a circumstance where I just think it could be avoided. We could have just started a little bit later in the day, and we would have no issues with this, but this is what the situation we were put in, and we just had to work with it. And at this stage you can see I'm just saving fuel behind my teammate, as we really needed to save a lot of fuel to try and get as many laps out of our first stint as possible. Exactly the issue I thought that happened to me. So as we maintain fifth position, you're going to see the most egregious example of these sparks as we go through these really high-speed corners. We cannot see the track at all. And it got worse, as you're going to see as we go through the last part of the Porsche curves. As we're approaching the Ford chicane, we cut that part of the track there just a little bit because I couldn't actually see where I was going, and that unfortunately gave me a half-second penalty. I was absolutely livid at this stage, but I promise you it does get better. It does get better. Doesn't know what he's doing. Can't see. I just see sparks. Oh, dude, that's insane. Lock in, Liam. So after a terrible first two laps, we've now managed to not get a penalty and work our way back up to P4, and now we're looking to try and get past our teammate Panic Potato to ideally be the first car in the slipstream train so we can kind of slingshot one another with working with Chaz. But unfortunately, see, we didn't actually get the move done there, but as we come out of the second chicane going towards Mulsanne Corner, we're going to use a little bit more fuel just to try and get past Panic Potato here, and we do so, and he doesn't really put up a fight. He clearly he's thinking long term right now, and we are now back in a solid position. P1 and Puma Nutcap, he is not saving nearly as much fuel as we were, so at this situation right now, we were looking to be able to do 6 laps on the fuel, while Nutcap was only going to be able to do 5, which opened up the strategy options late in the race for us. Careful, Chaz. Okay, rain's coming earlier than expected. So as you could see there, the weather was coming in a little quicker than I expected, as we were aware of the rough weather conditions we'll have in this race, as we were given the settings beforehand. And we really wanted to try and get 6 laps out of the stint, but with how quickly the weather was coming in, it put me into this really difficult situation that, do I pit on this lap and not risk driving on slicks on a wet track, especially in these cars, which is even more challenging, or stay out and take a risk that you could get a bit of rain at the end of the lap, but you gain a lot more time and you don't burn out the wet tires on a dry circuit. It was a fascinating part of this race, and let's see what happens. Oh no, Chaz. Hang out. The rain isn't coming in as fast as it should be. No, guys. YOLO. So just over 2 minutes into the lap, on lap 6, the weather has still not hit on the track, and it is starting to look like probably one of the best strategic calls I've made in the entire Gran Turismo 7, because in the face value, it looked like the rain was going to be hitting the circuit well within lap 6's time frame, but when you actually paid a little closer attention, it was moving quite slowly. So the top 5 drivers, or the other part of the top 5 drivers who did pit, they're going to be on wet tires for an entire dry lap, while I'm going to be on fresh wets as it starts raining, which is an absolutely amazing call in terms of the strategy, because worn wets on a very wet circuit is not that ideal. But there's still a long part of the race to go, so we just need to keep it on the track and nice and smooth and see where the race takes us. Well, that worked out perfectly. That weather was moving too slowly, that's why I checked. The weather was moving way too slowly to... Now everyone's going to be on, like, old wets. I told my team that this could be a thing, where the old wets are going to be terrible. I just need to keep it on the track now. Look how far away they are. I'm going to have, like, a 8 to 10 second gap, maybe? Oh my word. I'm going way too slowly. Come on, Liam. You know what you can do. I'm going 3 seconds lap slowly. Slower.
So through the majority of my wet stint, I was just really consistent. I was not pushing as hard as I knew I could go. I barely had any moments. I was just being really smooth most of the time and trying to do the wet lines, as you can see there, trying to do as much of the turning as possible and then just getting a full throttle or almost full throttle when the car is basically straightened up. These cars in the rain, you need to do so much throttle management. As you can see, I'm not even going full throttle until I hit about 200 kilometers per hour, and I'm doing massive amounts of short shifting to try and dull out the torque and the power, which did help a ton. But overall, the gap just stayed at around about 10 seconds to P2 throughout the entire stint, and I just played it safe. I did have about maybe a 332, maybe a 333 in the back pocket, but it really wasn't worth it in these conditions where one little fatal mistake could end my entire race because heavy damage was on. So just being smooth and consistent and trying to basically just wait out the storm and get to the dry part of the race further down the line. And as we fast forward to further on in the lap, you're just going to see how careful you have to be going through the Porsche curves when it's full wet conditions. You're going at least another 70, 80 kilometers an hour slower than you could in the dry. And I'm barely going full throttle. I'm always going like 60 to 70% throttle and short shifting a lot. So I had to do this for 5-6 laps. And it was really nerve-wracking to say the least. But oddly satisfying, because you really had to make sure you really had precise inputs and really smooth inputs to basically maximize the speed in this car, especially in these conditions. And as we cross the line, you're going to see the lap time compared to the previous lap was a lot better, 3:34 compared to a 3:36, so looking much better, and the gap is only coming down a little bit to Chaz, who was flying in these conditions.
So in this phase, they're going to catch up a lot to me due to the Gran Turismo grip thingy, where it's going to be dry for them. But don't be alarmed, like, oh, I've lost a second type of thing. It's normal. He's already gained a second, you know. Don't be alarmed, chap. The problem is, though, they need to pit this lap, I'm pretty sure. And I don't. I don't think the track will be dry enough yet. Oh no! Stop talking, more driving. Nah. I'm not pitting at the end of this lap, no matter what. I'm not risking it. There's no need to risk it. I've got the gap. They need to risk going onto the sticks a lap earlier.
So as you heard me say there, I was not at all keen to go and risk it pitting on this lap to slick tires, just because as well, I was in a championship fight. I was way further in the lead of the championship, but there was still a chance of my rival, who is now currently in P8, that he could still win the championship if something went wrong. So I was also taking a little bit of a calculated decision here where, listen, if I don't win this race, it still means that I win the championship comfortably. So that was a bit of a factor. But as you can see now further into the lap, the track is drying drastically quickly. It's insane. A lap ago, it was almost full wet conditions. Now it's borderline into/dry conditions. So yeah, it was a really tough decision. But I think staying out was the smarter one for me. And it'll just make it a little bit easier later in the race with having a little less wear on our slicks on the last stint.
Yeah, it is dry enough, but I'm not going to do it. The lines are so narrow in some parts. Okay, box. Box. 80%.
So as we came out the pits, the goal right now was just to be as careful and smooth as possible, not going to be risky until we get a bit of more tire temperature into the tires, especially the fronts. And as we go through one of the most precarious corners, Tete Rouge, you see we take it really carefully. We lift off well before the corner just to make sure we have a bit of more stability as we go down the Mulsanne straight now. We're just trying to build a rhythm until we get a little bit more confidence in these conditions, as the lines that you take in these conditions are a little different to your traditional dry line that you would take when there was no water on the track. And as we get to the first chicane here, you're going to notice how much later we turn in and how much later we turn in for the second part. We almost go over the water then run wide, which would have sent us into the barrier. So as you can see, it was precarious the entire way around the circuit. And Chaz behind was only 5 seconds behind now, so he was flying in these conditions. He was really quick, and as my teammate, I knew how quick he was in these conditions, so I had a really big test ahead of me going into the last part of this race.
Overestimated how much grip I got.
And as you can see there, that was my first massive mistake of the race, and by this part of the race I was absolutely knackered, and I was a little shaky, to be honest with you, after that little mistake at Arnage. To be honest with you, I just didn't feel really comfortable. I practiced quite a bit in these conditions, but when it came to the race, I just couldn't live with driving these weird lines to obviously stay on the track. And at the moment, Chaz was catching me hand over fist, and it was looking like I was going to lose this race, but I just try and keep it on track, keep it consistent. The slipstream here is really strong with these cars, so even if I get past or he gets close to me, I can slipstream back past him most likely. So it was not all over. It's just, it was not looking as comfortable as it was a few laps ago when I was 10 seconds ahead of him.
Almost died. He's got me.
So on the penultimate lap, Chaz has finally got within my 1 second slipstream range, and it was not looking good at this point because I was hoping that I could hold out until the last lap, but he's now well into my slipstream and he's gaining easily a couple kilometers per hour every straight, and the slipstream was just so strong in these cars. So at this point now, my mind shifted from, okay, it's not a train smash. Remember, if he goes past you, you can stay close to him for the entire lap, and all you need to do is just pass him at the favorable time at the end of the lap, so he had no more chance of getting past you. And it's basically just a high-speed game of chess going into the last lap. So going into the last lap, this is where it all counts now, as we're a little squirrely on the exit out of turn 2 and 3. As we now approach Tete Rouge going onto the Mulsanne straight, Chaz is so close behind me, it is unbearably uncomfortable in this position when I was driving. So he is now going to have a run on me going all the way down to the first chicane, and he is going to pass me comfortably. But now this puts me in a very favorable position. As you can see, I already switched to fuel mode 4 and I start saving fuel thinking, listen, right, I'll use his slipstream for the next couple of straights just to, you know, have a little extra on hand to pass him maybe later in the lap unless I make a mistake. So it's looking like it's well poised. Chaz is a lot quicker out of these chicanes, but the slipstream is just ridiculous. As you can see here, I look how much speed I'm gaining on him. I'm gaining tenths at a second so quickly. And another curveball on top of this is now we have a little bit of traffic that we're approaching into the next corner, which it's gonna be a little scary. And as we exit the second chicane and we approach Mulsanne corner, one of the most important parts of the track, I'm trying to time the slipstream as best as possible so I get a slingshot down towards Indianapolis after Mulsanne corner. But that traffic is a curveball because Chaz could get some slipstream from him, which could affect the whole dynamic react here. But fortunately, he gets out the way, and I'll leave the rest of the race to you guys to enjoy. Chad! Come on! Come on, Chad! Woo! Let's freaking go! Oh my word! Come on! Let's freaking go, chat! Come on! Let's go, Chaz. Chaz, man. Wait, let me go talk to him. Chaz, bro. GG's, man. G freaking G's, dude. That was brilliant, man.